We on? Okay. Unfortunately, we found a couple of items that are not included in the bill. So I will say this, there is a sub-A that is needed, and at this point, I would request that we hold the bill until I can get a sub-A. One of the problems in the bill is, that was brought to our attention, is that in order to have DMV communicate with the Division of Taxation, you need a change in the law. And it wasn't in the bill. That's one of the items. I will tell you this. We have come to the end. As of yesterday, I had a meeting with the director of DMV, an individual from the governor's office, and also from the Department of Administration and Revenue. The couple of changes that are needed, I can successfully say that as of early this afternoon, they will be submitting the changes. The governor's office is on board for passage, DMV is on board for passage, and so is the Division of Revenue. So as these changes are made, I will request a sub-A, and hopefully we will come back, hopefully, and do it prior to Massachusetts, which is the only other state in New England that that has passed it, and we'd be the last instead of the first. So with that, I would request that we hold it until I can come back with the sub-A that is needed on a couple of legal changes.
Very good. We've held the bill.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. And with that, what I'd like to do is start the public testimony on this bill. And I believe we have Isabel Garcia. Is she here?
Yes.
You may approach. We also have, I'm going to call 3 people up at a time, and you can sit in each one of the seats.
I will be
Oh,
doing
okay.
interpretation for
Oh, very good. All right. So
what?
what?
Here for the first 3.
Yes, please. Okay, so we have Isabel Garcia. And is there a Johanna
Yeah.
H?
Yes.
Yes, if you want to
Johanna.
approach the table and sit up here, this would be good. Isabel, if you would like to begin your testimony.
Yes, hi. Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Isabel Garcia y esta es la 4ª vez que me presento en parte de este bill.
Would you like to translate as she goes?
Would you like me to
Yes,
go in
please.
order? Okay. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Isabel Garcia, and this is the 4th time I've been in front of, in support of this bill.
Soy dominicana y soy madre soltera de 2 niños.
I am Dominican, and I'm a single mother of 2 children.
Soy indocumentada también.
I'm also undocumented,
Y para mí, igual que muchas familias en Providence, Rhode Island,
and for me, as the same as many families in Rhode Island,
necesitamos que este bill pase para poder ofrecer una vida mejor a nuestros hijos y ya no estar en la oscuridad.
we need this bill to pass to offer a better life for our children and not to no longer be in darkness.
Thank you for having me here. And si tuviera que venir 4 veces más para defender el derecho de mi comunidad y de los inmigrantes, estaría aquí 4 veces más. Gracias.
Thank you for hearing me, and if I have to come back here another 4 times to fight for the rights of my family and my community, I will do that.
Well, thank you very much for your testimony, and thank you for coming as many times as you have. We appreciate it very much, and what you have to say is very important. I also want to thank the assistants for your assistance for interpreting too. I do believe we have a question from Senator Quesada.
It's not a question. Le quería decir que muchísimas gracias por estar aquí y gracias por tu testimonio.
Gracias.
Okay. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much for joining us this evening. Next, we have Johanna. Could you please state your last name, please?
Hernandez.
Hernandez. Thank you. You may proceed with your testimony.
You're welcome. Hola, buenas tardes a cada uno. Mi nombre es Johanna y soy miembro de la organización de Amor. Y estoy aquí apoyando y a favor del bill S2006.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Johanna, and I'm a member of the organization Amor, and I'm here in support of the bill S2006.
¿Por qué estoy aquí a favor? Porque muchas personas han sufrido la deportación por incumplimiento a la ley y de conducir sin tener una licencia.
Why am I here today? Because many people have suffered and they have been deported because of driving laws and they have not had a license.
Tener un carro no es un lujo, es una necesidad para ir a trabajar o llevar a nuestros hijos a la escuela y a las citas médicas.
To have a car or a vehicle is not a luxury. It's a need for all of us to go to work and to bring our children to school and medical appointments.
Muchas personas como yo ya les ha pasado. Se han enfermado nuestros hijos y tenemos que correr al hospital y sin una licencia para conducir es más difícil.
It's a common thing that for many people it has occurred that their children are sick and they have to speed to hospitals for care, and without a license, all of this is very difficult.
Y es por eso que estoy aquí luchando para que todos podamos conducir sin miedo de ser detenidos y deportados por romper las leyes y por eso es necesario que este bill S2006 pase.
And this is why I'm here, fighting so that we can all all have the ability to drive without fear and without being detained and deported for these driving laws, and that's why we need the bill S2006 passes.
Muchas gracias por escuchar nuestros testimonios.
Thank you for hearing our testimony.
And thank you for coming and testifying this evening. We appreciate it. Thank you. And if are there any questions or comments by committee members? Okay. Thank you very much. Next, I'm going to call up Senator Acosta, and also, I'm sorry, I missed you, Rep. Both of you can come up for your testimony next.
A question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Is that testimony from Nadia in that order, or is that?
We'll go to Nadia next, and thank you so much
That's fine,
again
I'll come
for
back.
interpreting.
course.
I know the Senator and Rep have other business to take care of, and so they've got to get to other committees. Senator, are you in the middle of a committee now? Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, Chairwoman, and thank you to all the members of the Judiciary Committee for your time today and for considering this bill. SB 2006 is a bill that we heard before, a version of before, that this chamber passed last year with almost 3/4 support in our chamber. And so it's a bill that reestablishes something, a privilege that our state had before, and that with the stroke of a pen needlessly criminalized a behavior necessary for economic survival in our state, as the person who testified right before me alluded to. And so I would say today that by passing this bill in the General Assembly, the roads will be safer because more people will be insured, more people will have been tested before driving in our state, and they will have a card that attests to that. Now, the last thing that I'll say here is that we've updated and improved the bill from this previous iteration. And it now extends a privilege to people who have proof that they have paid taxes in our state over the last year. And so if we continue to think and frame driving as a privilege, it is a privilege that is earned by paying taxes in our state, and one that is now included in the body of the bill. So regardless of how you feel about the morality of this, the reality is that it would make our roads safer, that it makes sense, and that it's something that people have demonstrated that they have earned through their residence in our state. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Senator Acosta. Any questions? We're good, I think. Thank you so much for your testimony. And next we have Rep. Karen Alzate. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, of course.
You may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the committee. I'm Karen Alzate, the chair of the Black Latino Caucus, and I'm here in support of Senate Bill 2006. Our undocumented community are everywhere, from Newport to Woonsocket. They live and work besides all of us. They shop next to us, and their children go to school with all of our children. They pay taxes and support their families by any means necessary. Our undocumented community live in fear daily that they will be able to leave their home but not make it home because they have been stopped by the police while they were driving without a license or any documentation. Our undocumented community is made up of all people from all around the world, and they live right here in Rhode Island. They want to make it to work safely, and they want to make it home safely to their families. They benefit our communities every day, and being able to obtain a driver's license will allow them to obtain car insurance, which will also benefit all of Rhode Islanders. This is a great way to contribute to the state of Rhode Island. In 2006, my father was detained by ICE, and my sister and I were still in high school, if I remember correctly. And for 6 years before he was deported, he worked as a pizza delivery man. And every day that he left, we were worried that he might not be able to come back home because he was going to be detained again and then be deported. For 6 years, myself, my sister, and the rest of our family, we lived in fear every time my dad left to go and be able to make deliveries. The job didn't pay well, and he was still supporting my sister and I while we were in high school and in college. A driver's license doesn't seem like it's that serious, but it's very serious to people who are not able to come back home. When they leave their home countries and they come here, they really are asking for a better life. And this is just one way that we can help them take that off of their plate and be able to sleep well at night while they're also providing for their families. Thank you, members of the committee, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for taking the time to testify.
Thank you.
Any questions of committee members? Yes, Senator.
It's not a question. I just want to make a comment. For me, I didn't come to this country undocumented, but my husband did. And many years ago, when I married Lazaro, who is from Guatemala, we had the opportunity, when I met him, he was undocumented. And then, because he married me now, he was able to get his papers. But at that time, he wasn't able to get a driving license. Listen to all these stories. It's very similar to his story. And those are the things that really touch my heart to hear. And like you said, I want to echo your word. Driving, like the young lady just said, is not, to have a car, to be able to take your children to school, to go to work. It's so many things, especially in Rhode Island. The public transportation is not the best one. Then I really hope that today, and I'm so glad to see so many people today. Yo estoy muy contenta de ver tanta gente aquí esta noche testificando por este bill. I'm very happy to see that you were able to come this time and testify and give your testimony. Thank you to each one of you for being here. Thank you, colleagues, for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we'll resume to the first page. Nadia Gonzalez. Could you please state your name and also the organization you're from, too, please? The button has to be up.
Okay.
Thank
Sorry.
you.
Mi nombre es Nadia González y soy miembro de la organización Amor.
My name is Nadia Gonzalez, and I'm a member of the organization AMOR.
Y estoy a favor de este bill S-2006 porque en mi experiencia, cuando estuve enferma y no pude manejar para poder ir al hospital,
In my experience, I'm in favor of Bill S 2006, and in my experience, one time I was sick and I couldn't drive to go to the hospital.
le pedí a una amiga que por favor me lleve, pero en ese tiempo había mucho policía en la calle.
I asked a friend to please take me. It was a serious, and in that time, there were lots of police activity in the streets.
Ella, por miedo a tener problemas, ya que no cuenta con una licencia de conducir, no me pudo llevar.
Because she was afraid to have problems, since she doesn't have a license to drive, she couldn't take me.
Asimismo, ella ahora tiene que caminar mucho con su niño para poder llevarlo a la escuela.
And so now she has to walk a lot with her son to go to school.
Caminan en lluvia, en nieve, en condiciones no aptas.
They are affected, and so the children are driving in bad conditions like snow and rain.
Tengo la dicha de poder contar con una licencia y de poder manejar, pero yo quiero eso para todos.
I have the privilege to be able to drive and have a license, but I want that for everyone.
Es por eso que estoy a favor de este bill.
This is why I'm in favor of Bill S 2006.
Y además, con todo lo que está sucediendo en el mundo, creo que si cuidamos los unos de los otros, este mundo sería mejor.
And because of everything that's happening in the world, if we take care of each other, then we can make a better world.
Gracias.
I
Thank you.
agree. Thank you. Any questions or comments from committee members? Very good. Thank you so much. Next up is David Belisle. If you could please state your name and the organization that you're from.
Sure. Thank you. David Belisle, Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty. Sorry, it's weird being in person, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So thank you to the committee. Thank you to the chairperson. Like I said, I'm David Belisle, director of the Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Reduce Poverty, a coalition of faith leaders, advocates, community residents throughout Rhode Island, throughout many faiths that are united in the belief that we have a moral obligation to address poverty and inequality. For us, this bill is simple. As many advocates already have said really powerfully, and you will hear from other members, it makes our roads safer. If everyone has access to a driver's license, that means that everyone has access to insurance, and data will show, which will be presented, that states that have this, they have less accidents. People that have driver's licenses tend to have less accidents. Also, if people have driver's licenses and they are able to learn the rules of the road, we need that. We need everyone to know what they're doing. For us, there's also a moral issue. Throughout our faith traditions, we are taught and we learn that we need to embrace immigrants, that we need to embrace people who are from other places. A lot of our faiths are founded on this. We believe that we must take care of those who are poor and those that need help. This bill would do just that. As you just heard, it would allow people to go to work, go to school, make doctor's appointments. Dr. King spoke of this care, and this has become my favorite quote, so apologies if I say it at every committee. Dr. Martin Luther King said, "If it is our theology that the presence of God is everywhere and with everyone, then we must take care of that presence." If you may allow, I'm going to say this in Spanish for everyone to hear. Si nosotros creemos que la presencia de Dios está en todos lados y en cada persona, entonces tenemos que proteger a esa persona. And that is the foundation of the Interfaith Coalition lives on, that we are more than just Rhode Island. We are united throughout all traditions and people. Lastly, I will say that this bill not only is meaningful to our coalition, but to me as a person who grew up undocumented and eventually did what was necessary to become a citizen. Also, as St. Patrick's Day approaches, I am also reminded how this country and this state has a wonderful history of supporting immigrants. And so I hope that this committee supports this bill and all other subsections of it, apparently. And thank you also, lastly, to Senator Chacon for championing this bill so many years. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions or comments from committee members? All set. Thank you. Next up, Marcela. I just have a name, Marcela. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes, if you could please state your full name, yes, and the organization that you represent.
Of course, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Marcela Tancur, and I'm the Executive Director of the Latino Policy Institute. And I'm really proud to be here to support this legislation. Yesterday, the Latino Policy Institute had the honor and fortune to actually be with Progreso Latino to talk to people that you heard today. People who are undocumented. You'll see several of their letters. I think there's nearly like 30 pieces of testimony. Oh yeah, it was a big stack. Lots of paper was spent today, but it was worth it. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is we heard from parents who walk with their children in the ice and the snow. Years ago, I was one of those children. My mom and I lived in Central Falls, and she was undocumented for most of my youth. These people have been living in this country for decades. Many of them do not have a path to citizenship. Many, thankfully, like my mom did, or will. You have heard this over and over again. And the moral part, it should be there. And, as Senator Acosta said, it's the reality and the morality. One of the things that I did want to highlight that has been an issue, I know before, not just in this chamber, but in the House, is around, the issues of how would this piece of paper be utilized for legalization purposes and things of that sort. And so the great thing is that the advocates behind me and the senators here have worked to ensure that there are safeguards around that. It's incredibly important that it's been nearly a decade since you all have been hearing about this. Back in 2016, when the Latino Policy Institute put together an analysis about this, there were only 9 states. There are 16 now. Most of them are our neighbors. These are states that in the next few years will see a huge increase in revenue from this legislation. And when we talk about what are the benefits, I think that it's incredibly important that we underscore that will be the same for Rhode Island. So once again, I would appreciate if you took a look at all the letters that people yesterday for the first time, maybe sometimes in their life, put together to tell you about their life and why this is imperative. It is incredibly important, and for many of them, it's the difference between being able to live today in a house and be able to take their kids to school and not being able to do so. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for this witness? Seeing none at this time, thank you. Next, we have Matt Weldon. Okay, he's not here. Reverend Charles Ortman, is that? Ortman.
I don't write very well.
If you could state your name, please, and the organization that you are representing. And welcome to the committee.
Thank you. Am I on the air here?
Yes.
Okay. Reverend Charles Ortman, and I represent the Rhode Island State Council of Churches. I am the Commissioner for Immigration for the Council. And thank you for this hearing and this opportunity to address you. I'd like to begin with a little bit of personal. I'm not going to speak for very long, so you don't need to. It's not a sermon, really. Personal piece. One of the women who was in the room earlier and her child came to live with my wife and I for almost 4 years ago when they came as I'm going to blank, asylum seekers, sorry. In the close to 10 months that they lived with us, Mom, the mother, through incredible perseverance, strength of character, all of the positive characteristics we might hope of citizens of Rhode Island pursued education, pursued the right to be able to work, and finally working. And what I would want you to know is that at that time I was the interim minister at First Unitarian, and it would take me 14 minutes to get from my home in Riverside to the church. It took the mother 2 hours to get to any of her appointments in the city, going by bus, and 2 hours to get back home. So as opposed to a half an hour's time, 4 hours of time. And how does an individual get ahead when they can't even get even, is a question I have. The senator who was speaking over here a little while ago said, it's really not a moral question. And coming from where I come from, it really is a moral question. And from my Unitarian Universalist background, one of our covenanted pieces that all member congregations and all members of those congregations agree to is that we covenant to promote and defend a person's dignity, every person's dignity. And that those words are echoed in Christianity and in Judaism through love your neighbor as yourself. They're echoed in Islam by loving the stranger and loving the other. And because it's true in all world religions that we are here not just for ourselves but for each other, it's a religious issue, and then it becomes, because it is so many religions, it becomes much more than a religious issue. It's a human issue. And I just want to say to you what you already know. Please let us be human with one another. Please let us be human with those people who are here not documented.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Seeing none at this time, thank you for joining us. Next, I'll call up two more individuals. If I could have Elizabeth Burke-Bryant and Angela McFarland from the Sisters of Mercy. If you want to begin, Angela, you may proceed.
Sure. Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yes, if you could state your name and organization you represent.
Sure. My name is Angela Howard McParland, and I live in Cranston. I'm on the justice team for the Sisters of Mercy of the Americas, which is a Catholic order of sisters with a strong presence here in Rhode Island. You're probably familiar with our purple shirts at various rallies and events. And I'm here testifying in support of S 2006. At Mercy, one of our critical concerns is immigration. So we stand very clearly in solidarity with migrants, immigrants, refugees, all who are seeking a more just and humane world, and we seek that alongside them. We believe firmly in the dignity of every human person. We work for just and humane immigration laws in the U.S. and hope to address some policies that push people to flee their countries in the first place. I'm also a member of the coordinating committee for the Rhode Island Poor People's Campaign. This is the national movement founded by Martin Luther King Jr. to unite poor and impacted communities around the country. We want to combat the interlocking evils of systemic racism, poverty, and others. Tying the ability to procure a driver's license to one's immigration status is yet another example in a system that makes and keeps people in poverty. You know all this, but a driver's license and the ability to get to work, school, church, community, and family events, any number of places that many of us take for granted is a basic right that allows people to fully participate in modern life and community. Allowing our immigrant neighbors to have a lawful driver's license will lead to more insured drivers, safer roads, promote additional work hours, job changes, all that can improve local and state economies and communities. Lastly, a reminder that all of us were immigrants once. If not ourselves, our ancestors and families, they all came from somewhere else. So I urge our state to join states, many of our neighbors that have passed similar bills, and create this world where we can all fully live into the dignity as treasured images of God. Pope Francis tells us that hope is a gift, particularly of the marginalized and the suffering, and an expectation that entails solidarity and accompaniment. If we have hope, it's because many of our brothers and sisters have taught us to hope and have kept that hope alive.
A legal driver's license seems a small offering that could provide hope to so many. So let's cease the criminalization of hope and of those brave enough to seek a better life and world. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for this witness? Okay, seeing none. Welcome, Elizabeth. If you could state your name and your organization you're representing, you may proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chairwoman Poyne and members of the committee. My name is Elizabeth Burke-Bryant. I'm Executive Director of Rhode Island Kids Count. I am here today to provide Rhode Island Kids Count's very strong support for this Bill 2006 regarding driver's licenses for undocumented immigrants. I want to thank you, Senator Chacon, for sponsoring this bill, and a big thank you to the co-sponsors, Senators Cano, Goodwin, Quesada, Acosta, Zurier, Anderson, Calkin, Mack, and Lawson. We are in strong support of this bill, which would allow the Rhode Island Department of Motor Vehicles to issue driver's licenses and permits to applicants who are unable to establish lawful presence in the United States, but many are on their way toward doing so. The bill would build on the bill that was passed in 2018 that required the Rhode Island DMV to issue motor vehicle operators or chauffeurs license to Rhode Island Dreamers, residents who were granted deferred action under the DACA program. Why is this such an important bill to children and families? Having driver's privileges will offer some much needed stability in the lives of the license holders and the lives of their families, because it will allow parents to go to and from school and work, drive their children to important appointments, support their families and communities. Extending driving privileges to undocumented immigrants will also improve public safety on our roads, because these drivers will have to take driver's tests and know the rules of the road in our state traffic regulations. There is a lot of momentum for the passage of this type of bill around the country. 16 states and the District of Columbia have already enacted laws to allow unauthorized immigrants to obtain driver's licenses. The Latino Policy Institute's analysis on the impact of providing driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants found that states that provide these licenses had fewer traffic fatalities, lower costs for car insurance, and declining poverty rates. I am also a member of the steering committee of the Rhode Island Interfaith Coalition to Eliminate Poverty, and I know it's a major priority of that coalition as well. I urge you to join these other 16 states and to support this very important legislation, which is also economic development legislation, because it allows undocumented immigrants who are already working hard, sometimes at multiple jobs, to participate more fully in our economy, and that's great for Rhode Island. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this evening.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions of committee members? Seeing none at this time, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I would like to take the couple that have the two very well-behaved children here. It's so good. And understanding it's probably past their bedtime. Yes, if you want to approach the venue. I don't know you.
I'm translating.
Okay, perfect. If you could state your name, please, and if you represent an organization, that would be great.
Okay. Muy buena tarde, mi nombre es Lesbian Angel. Soy guatemalteca.
Good afternoon. My name is Lesbia Sangel, and I am from Guatemala.
Vine a este país hace aproximadamente 5 años.
I came to this country about 5 years ago.
No quería venir mucho a...
I didn't really want to come.
a dar mi testimonio, porque cuando me recuerdo lloro. Pero creo que es importante.
Because when I remember these things, it's hard, but I think it's very important.
Yo, gracias a Dios, ahora tengo la oportunidad de tener una licencia.
Today, I have the opportunity to have my own liquor license.
Y yo sé que la vida cambia mucho cuando uno tiene esa oportunidad. Estoy aquí porque quiero esa oportunidad para mis amigos, mi familia también.
And life really changes with opportunities when you have it. And I really want that opportunity for my friends and family.
Les digo que lloro cuando recuerdo porque algo que nunca voy a olvidar es que cuando mi hija que está acá tenía un mes de nacida, ella se enfermó.
And I'm crying when I tell you that I remember about this because my daughter, who you see here, when she was 1 month old, she got sick.
Y un día me llamaron de la escuela porque había demasiado viento y el clima estaba muy malo. Y me dijeron que habían puesto a mi hijo en el bus escolar.
And that same day, they told me that from school, they called me from school because there was a lot of wind and the weather was really bad, and so that they had put him in the school bus.
Y yo no tenía quien lo fuera a recoger y con la niña enferma.
And I had no one to go pick him up because my little daughter was sick.
Le puse una sábana bien gruesa encima, una sombrilla y me fui bajo la lluvia.
So under the rain, I put my daughter under a sheet and I grabbed an umbrella to walk with her under the rain.
El aire me quebró la sombrilla y yo tratando de tapar a mi hija.
And the wind broke my umbrella and I was trying to cover my daughter.
Ella estaba enferma con tos. Yo sabía que le hacía mal salir al aire, a la lluvia, pero no la podía dejar sola teniendo un mes en la casa.
She had a really bad cough, and I knew that it was bad for her to be outside with the rain, but I couldn't leave her outside because she was 1 month old.
Y yo iba caminando y llorando y diciendo qué hago aquí, pasando penas que nunca pasé antes en mi país.
Sorry. And as I'm walking, I was crying because I was asking myself, what am I doing here? I never had to go through this when I was home.
Y iba yo no soy de maldecir, soy muy creyente de Dios, pero en ese momento que iba así sintiéndome tan mal, iba diciendo cosas malas.
And as I'm walking, I am a woman of God, but I was cursing because I was thinking and feeling really bad things.
Hasta en ese momento Dios me envió a alguien como para decirme que uno no está solo a pesar de que uno se sienta solo en un momento. Y hubo una persona que se cruzó para el lado mío y me dice, señora, ¿usted qué hace con esa niña bajo este clima tan feo?
And at that moment, it was like God sent a guardian angel to me, and someone actually stopped on the road and asked, lady, what are you doing with your child in this weather?
Y me llevó a la parada del bus, esperó conmigo, me regresó a mi casa.
And this person took me to the bus stop and waited with me and then took me home.
Y yo dije, a pesar de todo, Dios me dice, no está sola, y a pesar de que uno a veces se porte de manera no adecuada, Él demostró que siempre podemos tener a alguien con quien podemos contar y Él usa a las personas para que nosotros sintamos la presencia de Él.
And God showed me that I wasn't alone. And God has a way of always showing us that there are always people there to show us His presence with other people.
Bueno, yo creo que todas esas cosas que uno llega a pasar al tener que llevar a sus hijos bajo esas fuertes nevadas, a veces caminando, porque con el niño nos tocó caminar. Y él me decía, mamá, mis pies están frisados a veces, porque una vez se le enterró la bota en la nieve y se quedó la bota ahí, yo escarbando en la nieve para sacar la bota, y él me decía, mamá, mi pie está frisado.
And so that happened several times. I actually, one time walking with my little son, we were walking in the ice and his boots kept getting stuck in the ice, and one of those times actually literally got stuck, so much so that she had to dig the boot out of the snow, and he kept complaining and crying that his feet were cold.
Entonces yo creo que sí es muy importante no solo para nosotros personalmente el poder contar con una licencia, sino que entre los puntos que yo creo que también son importantes es que son de beneficio para para el bienestar de todos nosotros, las personas. Nos dan mayores oportunidades laborales también.
Aside from all of these things that we go through, it's also really important because it gives us more opportunities for work.
Mayor seguridad en las calles, porque sabemos que todo el mundo pues va a tener la oportunidad de tener una licencia, de pasar un examen y de saber que están manejando y cumpliendo con las leyes.
It makes streets safer because now we are aware that everyone can drive, understands how to drive, that is out in the streets.
Creo que ya muchos lo han dicho, pero también ayuda a la economía, ahí sí que a la economía del Estado con el pago de licencias, el pago de taxes, el pago de los seguros de los carros.
And as always, others have already mentioned as well, it helps the revenue of the state through fees, through insurance payments and fees.
Y también ayuda a que tengamos un mayor bienestar psicológico, porque no es lo mismo ir manejando con el miedo de cuando uno mira a un policía, yo tiemblo y aún así que yo sé que tengo la licencia, y no estoy haciendo nada malo, pero no sé por qué me dan miedo.
It also helps psychologically because people won't be as afraid when they're driving down the street that when they see a police officer, they will get stopped and arrested. Today, even though I have a license, I still get scared every time I see a cop that I will be stopped and arrested.
Pero yo también quiero agradecerles por el hecho de que estén aquí escuchándonos. Disculparme porque soy muy llorona, siempre he sido así.
I want to say thank you for listening, and I want to say I'm sorry because I'm a crier, and apparently, I knew I was, but sorry that I cried too.
Pero creo que es importante que luchemos. Muchas veces queremos cambios, pero no queremos hacer nada por hacer esos cambios.
And changes are important, and sometimes we want them, we don't do anything to actually make them happen.
Y criticamos que no hay esto, que no hay lo otro, pero no apoyamos, no hacemos presencia, y creo que esto es parte importante, el hecho que ustedes nos escuchen, el que nos den la oportunidad de estar aquí, y primero Dios se dé la oportunidad de que pase el bill y que podamos como Estado tener todos esa oportunidad también por el bienestar de todos los ciudadanos, los que vivimos acá, ¿verdad?
Thank you for the opportunity to hear us, to see us, and to listen to us. It is important that we advocate for ourselves and that we advocate for you. And hopefully, this is, we can make this happen.
Y yo creo que es todo, y gracias.
Thank you.
Sorry de nuevo. Sorry again.
Thank you. Before you leave, I just want to say thank you very much for telling your personal story. And you set a very fine example for your children. You've done a fine job. So, does any committee members have any questions or comments?
Quiero agregar algo más, perdone.
She just wants to add something.
Ahora mi mentalidad ya cambió. Ahora digo, yo le doy gracias a Dios por tener la oportunidad de estar en este país, porque la primera vez yo estaba maldiciendo. Ahora digo, gracias Dios por poder estar en este país, porque la oportunidad que mis hijos van a tener, tal vez para mí está siendo difícil por el idioma y por muchas otras barreras, pero mis hijos van a tener mucho mejores oportunidades.
And even though she was cursing before about how terrible this country was, today she is incredibly fortunate and blessed to be in this country because she understands and knows the great opportunities that her children have in this country.
Thank you, and thank you for helping to contribute to change, because it's opportunities like this to come and testify and tell your personal story that matters. So thank you, and I believe Senator Quesada has something to say.
No, yo nada más le quiero dar las gracias a usted por estar aquí y gracias por compartir su historia, porque sí vale la pena que salgamos a luchar por lo que queremos.
Sí, gracias.
Thank you very much. Next on the list, I have Steve Brown. Steve, are you all set? Okay. Sue Kelly Murillo. And also, I'll call up Andrew Poignant. Is there an Andrew? I probably messed your last name up, sorry. So why don't we begin with Sule, if you please tell me or state your name and who you represent, I'd appreciate it. And you may begin.
This is on, yes. My name is Suseli Murillo. I basically represent my communities because that's my point, my goal, and my dream. I am here to advocate for this bill because to me personally, me, as many others are out there, need transportation for our safety, for our families, and for our daily life. Driving legally will allow us to get a better lifestyle as we can get better jobs we can get jobs that pay better, bring our kids to school, provide stable and safer environment for our neighbors and and especially our families. This is a topic very complicated to speak about because we have many opinions about it, but if we look at it as what it really what it really is, maybe we can come into an agreement and settle for knowing that we're doing the right thing to mentally and physically help families just like yours succeed in life and overcome the hardship society and this cruel world we're standing by. As many of you all know, there are many states who have made this dream possible for undocumented folks just like me, who are here working hard to try and keep food and a roof over our heads to keep up. One of the recent states that have made this dream come true is our neighbor state, Massachusetts, who have passed this bill, taking in accountability that it is important for it to reveal and reunite us as human beings. Just think about it as an opportunity to help to our economy by having new clients on buying cars from dealers, registrations, and insurance to keep legal and compliant with the law, as well as road safers in case of an accident, be able to locate the responsible folk, or maybe a fine that needs to be paid because of our wrongdoing, because we all make mistakes. Another concern that I heard about that is the voting part, and take my word on that. The last thing people like me want is to get into a situations where we can get in trouble, or more importantly, we're very aware about when it comes to voting, you need to be a citizen for it. We also don't want to be in a system we are not familiar with, because the pride we hold as being hardworking and honest looking just looking for an opportunity to succeed and overcome the stigma of being called undocumented. The only way to know if it's something will work out is by trying, and I feel this is an opportunity to help parents and folks really have an opportunity to become a Rhode Islander, like we all call each other, that will contribute like we already do on our daily lives, in being extra revenue to our state and show why we're called a beautiful Rhode Island. I also want a personal note. I was left in this country at a teenage when I was 12 years old, and I couldn't do anything about it. I have raised myself. I'm a great constituent. I provide for my community. I just became a parent ambassador for my kids' school. I'm part of the Providence Public Schools Committee. I do NLC New Leaders Council. I graduated CCAP. I'm an alumni from it. And I go to any eviction clinics or any events that's out there. I volunteer. And I have to be dropped off and picked up. And that doesn't feel good. I feel like a little girl and I'm 30 years old. So by having a driver's license until my immigration status gets settled, it will be like an amazing opening doors for me. I also want to be a social worker and I want to run for office when I'm able. But it takes steps, it takes time. And right now, a driver's license will be like the back door I need to continue to succeed and become a great human being.
Well, you're already a great human being, and thank you so much for your testimony. Any questions? We're good, thank you. Next, if you could, I believe it's Andrew, but I did not do a good job on pronouncing your last name. If you could state your name and who you represent.
Thank you. My name is Andrew Poyne, and I'm just here as myself. I'm here in support of this bill. It's been introduced 8 years. I think it's long overdue. We've heard many stories from many people today of how it would greatly affect their lives. And I'm a father, and I think all of us who are parents would all do what is in our children's best interest, whether that means we have to move to another country and flee, which, in this crazy world, we never know what will happen. So I think, as a parent, I really feel for that we would all just do what's best for our children, and we should, do the moral thing and allow people to get driver's licenses. As others have said, it's made it safer in other states that have passed it. It's now 16 states, DC and Puerto Rico have it. There's been drops in hit and runs because people aren't afraid of being stopped since they have a license, and a drop in accidents as well. So this will make our streets safer. This will significantly help people's lives here in Rhode Island, our neighbors. So I hope that this is the year that it passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Next, I'm going to call up Jennifer Wood and C. Ansel. Welcome to the committee. If you could please state your name and who you represent, and you may begin your testimony.
Thank you, Chairperson and members of the committee. My name is Jennifer Wood, and I'm the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Center for Justice, and I'm here to testify in support of this bill. I want to thank Senator Chacon and all of the other sponsors, including Senator Quezada, for bringing this bill back again this year after many years. And I know that we all feel that this is the year. So I'm here to state my enthusiastic support for that being the outcome. There is literally nothing I could add to the stories that you have heard this evening about the direct impact on families that this legislation will have. As a parent and a grandparent, the moving testimonies about the health and safety of children and families just trying to move through their lives, get to work, do what they need to do, is the most compelling reason to pass this legislation after all these years. I'll add another element to the many compelling reasons for passing this legislation, and that is that a number of years ago, a number of us advocating for immigrant rights and for a more just and equitable community for immigrants, including Mr. Brown, who I think is still here, met with the then superintendent of the state police to talk about the issue of people being pulled over and the issue of the importance of having access to driver's licenses for immigrants. And during that conversation, it was shared with us that although the state police do not wish to detain people who they pull over who are breaking no law, but maybe have been pulled over for some administrative or other reason, they felt they had no choice because, and the quote was, unless we can identify the person, we cannot release the person to continue driving. And I thought that was a very powerful piece of information for someone who doesn't live inside law enforcement. It brought me up short to realize, oh yeah, what do you do when you're interacting with someone and you ask for their identity and they cannot provide their identity to you? And so this legislation also solves that problem for people in law enforcement who literally do not want to create the problem that might otherwise be created by a routine traffic stop. But without a photo ID, they have no choice in their view but to detain that individual, which can lead to a cascade of horrific consequences that you've already heard from the families who are speaking from their direct experience this evening. So I would like to add that as another important policy reason that we can actually make everyone's job easier, make everyone safer, and it's a very simple act to pass this legislation. You've heard that it works in other places. The time has come to do so here as well. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions or comments for this witness? Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Andrade, you'll be next. If you could state your name and your organization.
Thank you. My name is Christian Andrade, and I admit that I put my name down because I was going to be doing the interpreting, but as it turns out, I get the opportunity to provide testimony as well. As you have heard many of the stories today, I am the result of the state of Rhode Island 25 years ago granting licenses to undocumented people. I came to this country in 1997, and from Massachusetts to here, I was able to get a license given the state, and allowed me to everything that's been mentioned today, to take care of a mother, take care of a 1-year-old sister, to take care of a family back home, to further my studies, to further my career, to be engaging with the community. I am the manager of a whole department here in Rhode Island now that I've been able to go back and connect with society at large, with this community. And I think the support for this bill is important. And as we've heard so many times already, it changes people's lives. And in my perspective, it's not just simply a moral thing. I think that the fact that this was that this state, maybe people have forgotten what the rules and the laws were and how the system and society could work by allowing the people without the immigration documents to still be part of society and still look for jobs and still be able to provide for their families and be safe. And so I just wanted to also add to testimony and support S 2006 as well, and take any questions.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions or comments for this witness? Seeing none at this time, we'll call up 2 more witnesses, Enrique Sanchez and Hector Perez Aponte. If you would state your name, please, and the organization you represent, and welcome to the committee.
Yes, my name is Hector Perez Aponte. I'm with the Immigrant Coalition of Rhode Island. I am testifying in support of Senate Bill 2006. I'd also like to add that Enrique Sanchez wanted to testify, but he couldn't be here. What I have to say pretty much goes along with what most folks have been saying already. But before I get into it, I'd like to just thank the Senate committee members for being here. I'd like to thank the sponsors, Senator Chacon, Senator Quesada, for the years of support and the sponsorship of this bill. And lastly, I'd like to thank the community members and the organizations that have given incredible testimonies today and for their bravery. It's not really the easiest thing in the world to give a testimony, so I figured it was important to show gratitude for that. In relation to the bill itself, last year, driver's licenses for all passed the Senate. It was a historic moment for the community all over the state. And I think it brought about feelings that we are closer to the finish line than we have ever been before. And we know that this bill will support people. And to go down the list of ways that this will support, I think it's already been expressed in depth. I will just say that given the people who are here, the experiences presented to you might seem like the experiences of a few and the work of over a few years. The reality is that this is the experience of thousands of individuals in our state and the work of over close to a decade. That's a decade of researching, that's a decade of educating, advocating, working, strength, determination, and unfortunately for many, a decade or over without with uneasy driving without a license. And so that's why we're back this year, because we sternly believe that this bill will provide opportunities for this community. It will be of a benefit to all of Rhode Island. And our persistence stems from this hardened belief. And we will continue to come back for as long as it takes. But we really hope that this year is the year. We have strong faith that this can be the year, and we will continue to do the work. And again, we thank all of the Senate committee members who are here today, and thank you for the community for being here today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions or comments for this witness? Very good, thank you. Next, we'll move to Sasha Burkhoff and Linda Katz. Welcome to the committee. If you could state your name and the organization you represent, please.
Hello. Hi, I'm Sasha Burkhoff, and I'm with an organizer with Never Again Action in Rhode Island. Never Again Action is a Jewish-led organization fighting against the persecution, detention, and deportation of immigrants in the United States. Personally, as a daughter and granddaughter of both Russian and Ukrainian Jewish immigrants, I've benefited immensely from my relatives' ability to integrate into American life. To our organization and to me personally, it is a fundamental matter of fairness that all Rhode Islanders have that same opportunity to fully participate in our society, regardless of immigration status. Passing this bill would be a step in that direction. In our state, it is hard to access educational opportunities, employment, or even basic needs without a car. I know this from my personal experience driving peers to doctor's appointments, grocery stores, and COVID tests so that they would not need to miss work. And as hard as it is for some of my young, healthy U.S. citizen peers to navigate daily life in Rhode Island without a driver's license, it is even harder for people serving as caregivers for younger children or elderly relatives, and people who, due to immigration status, have limited options for employment. On top of this, without a driver's license, any routine interaction with law enforcement becomes extremely dangerous. None of us are perfect drivers, and most of us have experienced being pulled over for a burnt out taillight or going slightly above the speed limit. Without even getting into suspicion or violence that a law enforcement officer might direct towards someone simply for being a person of color, if you are undocumented, every law enforcement interaction carries with it the fear of deportation and family separation. Furthermore, this bill has obvious safety benefits for all Rhode Islanders, immigrants or not, documented or not. It just makes good sense to increase the proportion of drivers on the road who are licensed. A driver's license ensures that its holders have passed a basic road skills test, and having a driver's license is a prerequisite for obtaining auto insurance. As someone who is at times a driver, a cyclist, and a pedestrian, I want every driver I encounter to have a baseline level of competency behind the wheel and to have their own insurance in the unfortunate event that we get into an accident. Our immigrants, friends, and neighbors want the same opportunity to drive more safely on our streets. We should want to give it to them. 16 other states, as well as the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, have seen the good sense of expanding access to driver's licenses to all their residents, regardless of immigration status. I urge Rhode Island to follow suit. Thank you so much for hearing my testimony.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions or comments for this witness? Seeing none at this time, I'll call up the next two, Jonathan De Jesus and Raul Figueroa. If you could state your name and the organization you represent. Welcome to the committee.
Thank you. My name is Jonathan De Jesus, and I am here on behalf of Progreso Latino. So I am writing to respectfully urge you to support S 2006, a bill that will grant a Rhode Island driver's license to residents of the state, regardless of the immigration status. This bill will enhance public safety and afford greater economic opportunity and output. Progreso Latino is a multi-service, non-profit, community-based organization located in Central Falls. Our mission is to help Rhode Island's Latino and immigrant communities to achieve greater self-sufficiency and socioeconomic progress by providing transformational programs that support personal growth and social change. Last year, we served over 10,000 people during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak. Expanding access to driver's licenses can ensure that every licensee is equipped with the knowledge and skills necessary to drive safely. In addition, unlicensed drivers up insurance premiums for everyone due to accidents and injuries, which makes up $4.1 billion in insurance losses every state. Therefore, I strongly encourage you to support and vote to pass S 2006. Rhode Islanders will greatly benefit from safer roads. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate your attention to this important issue.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience in waiting to testify. Any questions or comments? Seeing none at this time. Next up is Lily Gordon.
Hi, sorry. My testimony was being drawn on for a little bit.
Okay, could you state your name and if you represent an organization? Thank you.
Is the button good? Okay.
It sounds like you're on.
Great. Okay, my name is Lily Gordon. I'm representing myself, and I'm in support of S2006. And I can't speak to the personal experiences of being undocumented, but I think a lot of people have already done a really good job of that. What I will say, as someone who studied public health and who is a public health researcher now, I always think about how different kinds of policies affect the health and well-being of our communities. And a lot of people have already touched a little bit on how, or a lot actually, on how this bill would really help protect the health of our communities, especially people who have pre-existing health conditions who are already vulnerable. And I think it's really important to highlight ways in which marginalized communities, especially immigrants, have experienced different kinds of things, like, for example, the COVID pandemic. Sorry, let me just rephrase that. We can see that there are ways that different kinds of health problems are felt differently depending on people's identities and depending on people's zip codes. So, for example, when you look at the statistics, a lot of people of color, including immigrants, were disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, and similarly with things like asthma. The reason I raise this up is that it is actually linked to things like public transportation. Because, for example, if someone were to have an asthma attack, or they need to take their kid to the hospital because their kid is having an asthma attack, it's very different to be able to have the ability to get in a car and just go to the hospital versus having to take your kid on RIPTA to get to the hospital. Before the vaccines were available, my dad actually had a heart attack, and he had to get triple bypass surgery, and he had a lot of follow-up appointments. And because he was more at risk of getting seriously ill with COVID, it was really useful to be able to drive him to the hospital for his medical appointments. This kind of opportunity should be available to everybody, and it should not just be available to people who have citizen status or who are documented. Also, having the ability to use a car can make it easier for people with disabilities to be able to get to where they need to go. If you look at sidewalks, like if you step outside and you look at the sidewalks in Providence, it's really hard to just go down the street because the sidewalks are incredibly uneven. Expanding who can have access to cars would make it a lot easier for people to get to where they need to go, and that should be afforded to people who are undocumented as well. So that's all I'll say, is just that there are a lot of ways that allowing people to drive would allow people to also meet their health needs. We can also see this, for example, if you had an elderly family member who fell and needed help and needed someone to, come drive and get them off the ground. The fact that a family that has their papers or who are citizens could be able to just hop in their car and help that grandma or grandpa, but someone who's undocumented can't do that. That's not fair. These are just some examples of why simply being able to drive legally can really allow people to address really basic and really important health issues. So, yeah.
Thank you for your testimony. Any questions or comments from committee members? Seeing none at this time, thank you. I have one individual left on the list, Lesbia Sangel.
She's the woman that I translated for earlier.
Oh, okay. Did I miss anybody on the list? I think we have everybody all set. Thank you. Yes, Senator Quesada.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to take the opportunity to thank Senator Chicon for being champion for so many years on this issue. Thank you, Senator Chicon, for your effort, for your work. And I want to thank each and one of you for being here today and to present your testimony. Thank you, thank you, thank you.